Hello, everyone. Thank you for making time to be a part of our meetup for the month of August. My name is Linda Nsifel, and I am the convener of Women in Research, Monitoring, and Evaluation and Learning, or Women in RML for short. So we are essentially an online community that seeks to empower or inspire those who are seeking to grow in their career, specifically in the MEL sector. And these meetups are open for everyone who identifies as a MEL, or M&E professional. And today promises to be an exciting session. And before we proceed, I would just like us to dive into the agenda, and then we'll do a short ice-breaking activity. And if you haven't introduced yourself, this is the time to do so in the chat. It'll be great to know where everyone is joining from. And if you would like to share what you also do as a profession, that would be great. So I'll be sharing my screen. Please confirm if you can see. Awesome. All right, so today's topic is on designing MEL activities for projects or programs and sustaining them. And we are privileged to have our speaker, Arkeisha Amissah-Arthur, who I'll introduce shortly after we go through the agenda and the icebreaker activity. So this is our agenda for today. So the first item is a welcome and icebreaker. I'll introduce the speaker. Our speaker will take us through a presentation. Then we'll have a Q&A session. There'll be some announcements, and then we'll end the session for today. All right, so moving on to our icebreaker. So just want to check in with everyone. How would you describe the previous week or month? And I would like us to use a platform called slido.com. Probably some of you might be familiar, but if you're not, you can just type the URL in your browser. So slido.com, and then once you get there, then you enter the code, which is 3801717. 3801717. See if I can share in the chat. So go to slido.com and then you enter the code, which is 3801717. Okay, I hope you've been able to access. Okay, so I'll be checking to see if there are any results coming in. So I'll stop sharing for a bit so I can change the view. Okay, I see some results coming in. Let's see, what do we have? I hope you can see the results as well. Okay. All right, so one person said exhaustive, another said this is my first time I'm joining. Okay, that's great. Nice, tiresome, slow, exciting. Okay, are there any more? Okay, it was a great week. Great. And I'm sure some of us went on vacation and have come back refreshed as well. Great, great, great. We are already ending the 8th month of the year. I'm sure some of you are eagerly looking forward to the end of the year. Some of us are just taking things as they come in, taking a day at a time. Great, great. All right, thank you all for sharing. Keep them coming. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'll move on to introducing our speaker for today. All right, so our speaker is Arkeisha Amissah-Arthur, and she is the Data Development and Effectiveness Lead at an organization supporting work in 5 countries across Africa and Latin America. She has over a decade of experience leading national program development and evaluations in the US and Africa. While most of her recent work is in entrepreneurship and education, Arkeisha started her career in energy efficiency and portfolio management and uses her background in technical assessments and project development to support and build partnerships between practitioners, academia, industry, and policymakers to drive socioeconomic development. In her career, Arkeisha has created robust development and MEL frameworks for national programs in the United States, Ghana, Rwanda, and Kenya, contributed to the development of 2 policies in Ghana, helped organizations increase their revenue by 21% on average, and worked in teams to raise more than 750 million in grants and resources for programs and initiatives. She holds a degree in sociology and urban studies from Union College in New York and certifications in energy efficiency and building science from the Building Performance Institute of America, as well as data analysis, research, and investment certifications. Arkeisha, we are pleased to have you. And yes, this is your moment to help us unpack our topic for today.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
It is a pleasure being here. I'm also part of the group, and so I was so pleasantly surprised when I heard to lead this activity. So on the base, this seems like a very straightforward conversation, but there's so much that goes into designing and sustaining programs. So I just wanted to say hello to you all, so that you see me and I introduce myself properly. But I'm going to turn my video off because I know that we have some internet issues that happen sometime. And if there's any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat because we'll have a conversation after the fact with Q&A. So if anything comes up, you could do that or just wait until the end of the session. So let's get started. So we're here looking at designing and sustaining MEL activities for projects and programs. And we're looking at the two of them together, even though there are some things that make them separate and distinct from each other, because typically projects have a timeline where they end, whereas programs are sustained over a longer period of time. But today we're going to look at 4 different parts of the conversation. So we'll start with why MEL matters. And then we'll move into design, which is essentially starting with the why, going to sustain, and then looking at why it's hard. And then we'll explore a case study on public transport safety. But before we get into that, I want to say hello. So this is a little bit different, but similar to what we just did. If you could film your day in a movie, what would the title be? Can we put that in the chat and discuss? If anyone would like to share more about why they titled their day in the way that it would be. I'll give us around 2 minutes to think about this. Okay, these are some interesting titles that we have so far. It seems like everyone is having a long day, unfortunately. But it's also reflective of some of the challenges that's faced by MEL officers. A lot of times, we have to have conversations with different groups and negotiate things that seem outside of the purview of monitoring and evaluation. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so we can keep those coming in. But for the interest of time, I'm going to move us on to get started. So let's look at why MEL matters, the monitoring, evaluation, and learning. So when we look at monitoring, that's the ongoing systematic collection of data. And you can think about it like a GPS for the project, whereas evaluation is a periodic, in-depth assessment where we're looking at effectiveness, efficiency, and impact. And the big question is, did we achieve our goals? And why? Why meaning whether we did or whether we did not. And learning is the process of using that data and insights from monitoring and evaluation to make informed decisions. But you can also adapt the project, improve future work, or create outputs in the form of learning products so that you can share that with people in the industry, academia, informing policy, or creating guides for the team itself or others that are working in parallel organizations. So you can think of monitoring as the compass, evaluation as the map, and then learning as the journey itself. And it's important because we need to look at accountability and then have that with our partners, donors, and the communities that we serve so that we can use that for adaptive management. And it'll help us make real-time adjustments and course correct when we need to. And then that takes us into the learning and growth because a MEL system is really important to be a living, breathing document that's updated over time. And so by learning and then having growth, we can ensure that we're building on success and then not repeating mistakes. So when the information is not proprietary, we can share that with other organizations. And so that's where community comes in, similar to what we're in right now, having these conversations so that we can get to know what others are doing and also start to pass on things that work and things that didn't, and then be able to reach out to people when we have questions, whether that's about the things that are happening within the MEL activities themselves or something that's parallel, let's say something that's being implemented in the program that may need some monitoring or evaluation in the future. And then also for moral support. So it's all really important. And so you can look at this whole thing in a similar fashion to learning, where it's the process where you use it to change your actions and then also evolve and develop over time. So jumping into the design aspect, it's really important to design effective MEL activities. And and then so that's similar to why it matters in the first place. So when we look at it, MEL isn't in a silo. It's part of an overall project itself, which usually has the project team, the beneficiaries or the end users, along with the funders or donors. And so all of these different stakeholders come into play. And then that's just for the project itself, not even speaking on the topic of alignment to compliance for the industry or the regional requirements, which may require government or those in industry or academia, for example. And so we're starting with the why. Your MEL activities must be tied directly to your theory of change or your logic model. And then so you'll ask the question, what's your project's goals? And what are the steps you believe will get you there? So once you get to that part, you can develop key MEL questions where you ask, what do you really need to know to manage this project effectively? The questions should be specific, measurable, and relevant, but they should also be designed with the project team and then other members of the stakeholder group so that each view is captured. And it also gives a dynamic view and understanding from everyone's side so that it's representative of the project as a whole to be more effective. And this also helps when going to collect data in the end because people contributed to it. So they have some sense of ownership and they want it to succeed. They want you to succeed outside of just what they would gain from it independently. When you're designing the MEL activities, it's also important to discuss how you would share it. And that's something that I didn't add into this slide. But these are some practical steps that are really simple and straightforward. That's the base of monitoring and evaluation systems. So the first one is identifying indicators. For each activity and outcome, you'll have what you'll measure. And an indicator should be specific, but you also need to be able to verify that metric. For select methods, that's where you choose how you'll collect the data. And the methods can be quantitative with surveys, counts, attendance sheets, or other things that use technology such as sensors, or it could be qualitative. And you can collect that from interviews, focus groups, and case studies, for example. And the last piece is creating a plan. So when you create a plan, you're essentially documenting all of this information into one easy to access artifact or file, if it's in a Word
Waiting
doc.
for reply.
Okay. And then so after
And
that,
why
okay, thank you. And then after that, it's really important to look at how you're sharing the information from the MEL activities, as long as it's not proprietary or sensitive. Okay, so going into sustain, one thing that we don't really discuss is how to introduce MEL. Because let's say you've gone through the process of co-designing the system itself, and that could be a really daunting process where everyone is fully engrossed into adding in information from their specific professional area. But when you bring it all down, you have to actually introduce the system. And so that starts with introductions. So you want to introduce yourself, the program, the requirements, timelines, resources, and other things that the program have to make sure that the information is there from the program calendar start date. And this could be for the program team, but it can also be for those that are participating in the programs or the projects, as well as the stakeholders. So when you're doing the introductions, you can say why it's relevant to them, what they would get out of it in terms of how they would see the information and the end of the evaluation and analysis of data, and then also what they would have to contribute. So they would know upfront, like in real time, and then have a discussion about it so that they're informed. You can also introduce resources. So this is the templates, let's say templates for the project team or program managers that would have to use the learning material in case there needs to be trainings. If you're dealing with multiple sites, for example, and then also budget recommendations because delivering a monitoring and evaluation system, usually it costs something. So whether that's from the data collection to the labor requirements, data storage, and so on and so forth. And then after that, one of the introductions is quality checks. So this is on data quality, but then also on service delivery, and then each one of the components of the MEL framework. When you're working with children or vulnerable communities, there are special checks that need to be done to make sure that they're informed, and then if they have caregivers, that they also consent. two things. So this could be for data collection, but it can also be for media if you're capturing photos or videos with a photographer or videographer. So you'll review the type, quality management, and sources of data that the programs collect throughout the program calendar that's scheduled. And the last part of that in introducing it is how you would have ongoing support. So whether it's with the team that you're working with, or if it's other members of the MEL staff, or those that are sharing data, you can provide office hours or email address, and then they can get to you with questions and then get feedback and then request support. I personally like office hours because it gives everyone a chance to do one-on-ones or group sessions to go through the material so that everyone is on the same page. If anyone has a question about any part of the requirements or the activities, they can ask them and it can be answered. When you're looking at reporting periods, whether that's monthly or quarterly, semi-annually, annually, this also gives them a chance to have a review to make sure that everything is okay and has a good quality before it's actually submitted for review and analysis. Okay, so let's get into the case study. So with the case study that we're doing today, we're looking at public transportation safety, and we're going to have a focus on gender and accessibility today. So this will be a little interactive. I'll get us started by reading off this page, and then the next one. And after that, I'll ask for some volunteers to take us through it. So we're starting with characters. There are two monitoring and evaluation officers and two community representatives. The context of this is that the city is implementing a new late night bus service to improve access to transportation for evening workers. The monitoring and evaluation officers are tasked with developing a framework to monitor and evaluate the program's effectiveness. The community representatives represent a community organization that's advocating for safe and inclusive transportation. So we have the characters there, and then the objective is that they'll present their framework to the community reps, seek feedback to ensure it integrates gender responsiveness and inclusive principles, and the community rep will provide suggestions based on their community needs. Okay, so we have four characters here. Do we have any volunteers of individuals who would be open to reading um, the script from any one of these? Or is it better for us to select individuals? I see a hand raised. Elizabeth Ford.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you so much. So which character would you like to have today?
I think I'll take Sarah.
Okay, so we have Sarah. Do we have volunteers for John, Aisha, and Carlos? Yes, Angela. Which character would you like?
I think is it Aisha available?
Yes, Aisha is
Okay, yes, I
available.
wasn't sure. Yes, I'll do Aisha, please.
Thank you. And then so now we need volunteers for John and Carlos. Linda, would you mind making recommendations for two individuals that could read John and Carlos?
Okay. Donald, are you available? Can you take John? Okay, looks like Donald is not available. How about Emmanuel?
Yes, I will be a volunteer for John.
Okay. Please, who was speaking? Was it Farha?
Farhadullah Kazizada.
Okay, all right, sure. Okay, so we have someone who will read as John. So we need one more
Yeah, for
to
Carlos.
represent Carlos. Yeah. Okay, let's see.
I think there is
I'll take Carlos.
yes.
Emmanuel? Was that Emmanuel?
Yes.
Okay. So Emmanuel, you can take Carlos then. Thank you. Okay, it looks like we're sorted.
All right, great. So let's get started. You can unmute yourself when you're ready and then read your part and then so on and so forth. So we'll start with John.
Hi, Aisha and Carlos. Thank you for your late night bus service and are developing a framework to track its success. Here is what we have number of riders. We will track the total number of passengers using the service each night. Bullet point number 2, route utilization. We will monitor which bus routes are used most frequently. And the third one, customer satisfaction. We will conduct survey after a few months to gauge user satisfaction.
Okay. We are also considering adding a question about perceived safety on the surveys. What do you think?
Those are good initial metrics, but I think you might be missing some important aspects. For example, how many women are using the service? Feeling safe at night is a major concern for us women using public transportation.
Absolutely. Consider disaggregating the data by gender. Also, are you including people with disabilities in your survey? Not everyone can easily navigate regular buses.
That is a great point. We can definitely add a question on gender to the survey. As for accessibility, maybe we can track the number of complaints about a lack of disability-friendly features.
Perhaps we could work with the organization to conduct focus groups specifically with women and people with disabilities to get a deeper understanding of their experiences using the service.
Awesome. Thank y'all so much. Very well done. So this right here is our case study, looking at public transportation safety. So when you think about sustaining it, going over what they shared in terms of the program itself, of public safety, and then also the dialogue, what would make it hard to sustain? While we think about that, I'm going to go over a few strategies for sustainability. So when we're looking at sustainability, we need to look at integration, ownership, the use of simple tools, and then creating a culture of learning. So with integration, we have to treat MEL as a task that is part of the system. So integrating it into daily work and team meetings. In many programs and projects, there are separate MEL officers or specialists, but there are some where the monitoring, evaluation, and learning aspects are part of the program manager's work, unfortunately. And so one thing to do is to make sure that there's integration. Another thing is ownership. So with ownership, it starts with the design and then co-creation. So we can assign clear roles and responsibility for data collection and analysis, and everyone on the team should see themselves as part of the MEL process. And the third thing is using simple tools. So we can use simple and accessible tools. And a lot of times we'll look at a huge database, but sometimes a well-designed Excel sheet for a data set is just what we need, along with Google Forms. And then we can supplement that with a notebook. And I always advocate for using electronic systems for sustainability and then also loss because paper systems can be damaged by loss, theft, water, fire, any number of things. Poor handwriting, for example, is a major culprit. And so if these are saved online, then it's easy to share them with others so that they can see things and then add on to it and then get a clear understanding, especially when there's different conversations with donors or partners, for example, and the development team needs to know what's going on so they don't have to call the person who works with the data to get insights or stories about the people who are supported, whether they're beneficiaries or end users. They can go right in and see that through a simple, accessible tool. And the last part is a culture of learning. So a culture of learning is really, really important. This right here is more than just saying we have a system. It's fostering a culture where it's safe to admit when things aren't working as planned, when things need to be shifted and updated and changed, when the budget goes over, when there are things that happen that cause delays or shifts in the systems. And so you can celebrate when the data leads to a positive change in direction, and then also hold space and make sure that there's also attention given when it doesn't, when it shows that there is a negative impact with what is happening, whether it's negative in terms of not achieving the targets or is having a not positive impact on the end users. And so this would make MEL feel like a value add and something that is important and a value and worthwhile to the team and the different level of groups that are involved as stakeholders instead of it being a burden. So, in the scenario you provided, with those things in mind, does anyone want to share? You can unmute yourself or type in the chat some of the key challenges that the MEL team may face when sustaining the activities for the late night bus service. I'll go back to the previous slide that we were just on, in case anyone wants to look through that. Yes, Elizabeth?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. So I'm thinking about a maintenance cost because I think it has an impact when it comes to sustainability. When the community or the beneficiaries are unable to maintain the bus, in this case, as in when there is a problem, it breaks down, and then the sustainability we are talking about here doesn't come to play anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. Does anyone else have thoughts or observations or even experience with the programs that they have worked with on things that could be barriers to sustaining MEL systems and activities? Okay, no worries. That is
Hi,
exactly, yes.
good afternoon, everyone. So, With my experience with the community not being able to sustain the MEL system, I can think of it's not with regards to the example given here, but I was just reflecting one of the programs that I've implemented, which is the women's savings groups. We were collecting data, different type of data, group level data collection, which included, because it was a savings group, we were collecting data on participants' savings, performance of groups in terms of group attendance, group breakdown, all of that information. So when the project ended, because I stayed in the same locality, I realized that the participants were no longer doing data collection because, and I could pick the reason why they were not doing the reason why they were not continuing with collection of data is because they didn't see the significance of data collection, because the project probably didn't instill the concept of data use or data analysis at a group level. So that's what I can think of right now when it comes to sustaining difficulties in sustaining the community MEL systems. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That is quite challenging. So when you looked at that, was it everyone as a collective whole? Did they say why they weren't continuing with data collection?
Well, they indicated the complexities of our collection tools. So during the project, it seemed as if they understood how the data was captured, but then afterwards, I think it just stopped. They were not continuing anymore. But unfortunately, because the project has ended, I didn't have the resources kind of to just continue supporting them and building their capacity such that they continue on their own. It was just me in my personal capacity just visiting them because I lived in the same locality.
Okay. What sector was that in, if I may ask?
It's an NGO. It was NGO, community development. So
Okay.
when funding stopped, the organization went away, so the groups were on their own.
Okay. That is rather unfortunate. So I see a note in the chat, the reason because we need to be nurtured sustainable within community, not what is delivered to them. Would you be able to share more about that, Sarumi? Or if anyone has thoughts on that note, you can share it as well. This is on nurturing sustainability within the community instead of receiving
Good
outside.
evening.
Yes.
My viewpoint regarding why is there was a project. I was a male person in charge with with Save the Children, the washing school project. So at the end of it's just a recent project. So it's a year project, and we were hoping that the funder will give us additional money so that we can extend the project to other districts, because in Nigerian Lagos State, we have about educational district 6. So we only focus that implementation on those two districts. So we have 4 left. So when there's no funding again, then we now try to, okay, what can we do? Close out project so that the stakeholders and basically it was school project. So the stakeholders will understand why we cannot continue so that they can accept the ownership of what we try to implement in that community. So what I'm trying to say is nurture is just that at first if to achieve this sustainability, the community itself, we need to maybe training give them orientations about, okay, this thing, the donor can say, okay, we don't have money again. Even the funder, the funder can say, okay, there's no money again. And with the help of government, even government can, there's some things that the government cannot even support. For community, they can't, at least we provide some items for you. Let's say like dignity, construction of toilets, so that, and solar power, so that the community themselves, even the schools, they can sustain it. So the action point at the end of that review meeting was, and the school was like, they cannot even sustain that, that they need more from the donors, and there's no money again. So why I said the community itself has to accept, I mean, they need orientation that, okay, this thing is just a humanitarian, or it's just um the it's just a funding from somebody that, okay, so that what I'm trying to say is that the community or anywhere or schools need to be trained that if at all anything happen at the end of the project, you you accept the ownership of that project, so that there will be a continuity. Because from experience, there are some community that a lot of projects have been done there, and in the next 2, 3 years, you can see that those projects, there's nowhere to be found. There's no maintenance, there's nothing. So I believe if we can train community at first, so that if anything happens, they will take the ownership. They will not be depending on NGOs funding somewhere, so that they can task themselves within the community. Thank you, Anoa. If I able to add the point that you want me to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is exactly it. So I wanted you to share your experience. Thank you so much. Because that is one thing that comes up a lot in that work is done in communities, but communities can't really sustain it or have the idea that they have ownership after that because someone else brought it in. And so that's part of the larger discussion, and that could be another topic of discussion. And then also putting down steps to a way forward, especially as we see the changing, the evolving nature in the development world that's happening as countries shift from foreign into domestic activities. Yeah, so thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's a really good point. We're coming up to time, so I wanted to add into the things that everyone has shared today. So some of the things that can make it hard to sustain the project and the case study, and then also others, is the thing of data collection logistics. So that would be who is responsible for doing the data collection, the data cleaning, who pays for the storage of it, um, who holds the focus groups, for examples. And so, just like you were saying, without clear ownership and a realistic schedule and also a budget, the activities fall by the wayside, and essentially all of the good work that has gone into a project or program, it wouldn't be sustained. Another thing is the financial piece alongside that. So finances and resources, I'll say. Um, so doing the activities, they can be expensive, especially if you're looking at a national or a regional project. So it's more than just counting the number of individuals that interact, or the number of times, or if there's a change. But the having budget constraints can make it difficult to hire or dedicate staff to more labor-intensive tasks, for examples. So it's really important to secure a diverse set of funding and resources to make sure that the activities keep going throughout the life of the project, and then it can also be sustained after the fact. So this may be having different donors or making it so that there's an administrative cost that supports the ongoing activities afterwards, or having an investor or partner or a community make sure that there's funds or people or resources that are needed to keep things going. And then that goes into the integration and use of data. So when you're tracking things like complaints, a potential pitfall could be that adding a metric without a plan leads to nowhere. So what happens when an organization like the transportation gets a complaint? How exactly can they address that? What about a lack of disability-friendly features? If they learn about things from the data, but they don't use it to make changes to the service, like retrofitting the buses to be disability-friendly, or adjusting the routes so that people who are the most high density of users, that they can also access it when needed in the time that they need it, then the team in the community will see the MEL activities as pointless and then stop buying into it. And in turn, it'll lose the sustainability. And the last point that I want to talk about is engaging community reps. And so the dialogue that this case study had, it's a good start, and it's a good start to sustaining the partnership with the community representatives, but it can be difficult. And a lot of times the representatives don't have the final say-so because they'll need to speak to their supervisors and get things signed off, and then also go through a long process sometimes to get approval. And so it's great if there could be a regular structured feedback loop of communication where the community members feel like their input is valued and acted upon, which goes back to the use of data. And so if the team only asks for feedback and doesn't share the results or show how the feedback was used, then the community or the organization that's being worked with may disengage. And so that'll mean that you'll have lost a valuable source of data and then also the potential for learning in the future. And so the takeaway of all of this is that MEL is a living system. It's a cycle, similar to that in research or entrepreneurship, for example, a build, measure, learn, and so on and so forth. It's not a one-off event where you make it one time and then you're done. It should be revisited annually at least. And you're designing with the end in mind. So, answering the question of why is it funded? What exactly do the end users and beneficiaries need that they can actually sustain and then keep up? How will it make the quality of life and living better for people? And it's important to keep it simple. Make it everyone's responsibility so that everyone has a key part in it and they have a piece of the pie, and then use the insights to adapt and improve over time. So with that, that leads us to the end of Q&A. I know that we have gotten close to our end time, but I'll be able to stay on the call in case there's any questions. And I think that it would be great before anyone exits if we can do a photo also to capture the moment for us.
Great. Thank you so much, Arkeisha, for the brilliant presentation. It was very interactive, and I'm sure our participants can say the same. So we can make time for a number of questions if participants are not in a hurry to leave. So if you have any question, please, you can raise up your hand and you'll be given the chance to ask. So Elizabeth has a question. Elizabeth, please.
I'm sorry, it's not a question, but I
Okay,
wanted
no
to
problem.
know. I just wanted to
Comments
know
are welcome.
if, yes, please, if this has been recorded.
Yes, it will be made available. So we
Thank
have a
you.
YouTube channel to be uploaded there.
Thank you so much.
Sure, you're welcome. You can also type your questions in the chat as well.
Thank you so much for the feedback. It's been a pleasure presenting to everyone.
Okay, doesn't seem like there are any questions at the moment. Okay, so Arkeisha, do you have any final thoughts? And also, if people want to contact you afterwards, how can they do so?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think that the main thing that I want to just emphasize is that nothing will ever be perfect. It's always a work in progress, and it's really important to get as many people involved in the designing and sustaining planning, so that that way it could be more rigorous and have a right size for the thing that you're doing. If anyone wants to reach me, you can reach me on LinkedIn, or Instagram, and my handle, is Arkeisha. So if you go to LinkedIn and then type Arkeisha, LinkedIn.com, I think, /Arkeisha, then you'll find me. And I'll be happy to connect. And if you have any questions after the fact, or just want to expand your community, please connect. And I'll be really happy to see you again in the future, whether online or in person, possibly.
Great. Thank you so much, Arkeisha. All right, so before we leave, okay, let's do the group photo. Also, people have already started dropping off, but let's make the most out of our time. So if participants wouldn't mind, if we can turn on your videos, and we'll just take a quick group photo. Okay. Let me just change the feed. Okay. Do we still have? Okay, are we ready? All right. Taken one. We'll take another. Okay, excellent. Thank you all. All right, so just a couple of announcements before we drop off finally. So please do well to provide feedback on our session today. I will drop the link in the chat. So you can provide feedback, you can share any topic that you want us to cover during our meetups. And then you can also go to our YouTube channel where you can access previous recordings from our sessions. So this current, well, today's session will be uploaded there. So you can always go back to it and yeah, refresh your memory. And yeah, so we'll make the PowerPoint available. So as soon as it's ready, our speaker will make it ready. So thanks to Arkeisha. We'll share the PowerPoint slides for everyone to access. And for our meetup next month, we'll be looking at the application of M&E in the health sector. And details of that session will be announced on our social media pages. So we are accessible on Twitter. So if you go to Twitter, or now it's called X, I will share the link so you can follow us there so that you can have the latest updates on our meetups coming up. And then we're also on LinkedIn. So I'll share our LinkedIn page as well. So you can copy all these links and then make time to visit these pages at your own convenience. All right, so thank you all for joining our session today. It's been a pleasure having you all, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.